Hey everyone, Temporal here, and we now have live brackets from Activision Blizzard for the playoffs. You may have seen in the previous video, we did power rankings. I've linked that down in the description below of what the teams looked like coming out of groups. We did have the top two teams from each group come through. Obviously, the teams that won their group will be in the first round, be paired up against teams that, got second place in their group of 8, because only the top 2 are through. So in past seasons, that would have meant that how deep you can get in the tournament, if you're not one of those group winners, is in a lot of ways determined by how through luck how long you're able to avoid the top 3 a few seasons ago, or the top 6 last season, that sort of thing. It would have been the avoid the ISUs, the Northwoods, or in previous seasons, the Harrisburgs, the Maryvilles, that sort of thing, if we go further back. So now we actually have a pretty well rounded out strength at the top here, where these schools are all very good. These schools are pretty darn good too. Hard not to call these schools good, but Dallas did lose to Rutgers there. So we have a lot of, hey, all of the top 8 schools are pretty darn good, or top 7 at least that we've put here, pretty darn good. Shouldn't really be anything free. Everyone sort of has to earn any depth that they get if they run into them. That said, you can have won a group without running into one of these schools. So let's start with, even though it's double elimination now, even though we'll get to go down to the lower bracket, fight your way through, you could still get 2 bad matchups where, hey, maybe it's double elimination, but you run into a school that quickly got eliminated by one of the other good schools because they were bottom of their bracket. Like SCAD got to be bottom of the bracket, even though they would generally be considered a top 8 school. So let's take a quick look. And if we look through here, Harrisburg, okay, we accept that this bracket has sort of a champ potential in it. University of Texas, Dallas, UCI. This is tough. UCI is not on the same tier that we would see from the Northwoods, the Harrisburgs, the Bay States. They're good, they're solid, but they're really not quite at that same tier. And then we also get to look over here and see University of Texas, Dallas. Well, we usually would have them at a similar level to UCI. UCI actually took them down, surprising everyone last season. Last season, University of Texas, Dallas, one of the big 6. In Swiss play, they took down Northwood, who was believed to be the second best school. Northwood ended up winning it all last season in the playoffs, but University of Texas, Dallas fell to UCI when they met up in the playoff bracket last season. So will this be University of Texas Dallas's chance for revenge for that whoopsie that happened? Or will this be a case of, hey, University of Texas Dallas, like last season where they lost to UCI, this season in groups, on the last day, lost to Rutgers, which kind of surprised everyone. That's why they're in this situation where UCI, Irvine won their bracket. Dallas only got second in their bracket. So this is a contested spot that we have in the first round here. Northwood will beat Grandview. There's no question there. Bay State, I love you guys over at Santa Cruz, the Banana Slugs, but Bay State's going to take you down. Maryville should take down Bellevue. Similar situation. SCAD and Rutgers. This becomes another question mark. Now, you might go, hey, let's look at our tier list. Let's look at what we've said. SCAD has been good. SCAD last season was up here. This season has been up here because nothing has knocked them down. But they don't have, amazing wins that are locking them into this spot. If we look at SCAD's record, what do we have for SCAD? We have, let me grab that real quick. We have wins over UF Orange, UCLA, Grand Canyon University. Don't get me wrong, those are some okay schools. UCLA, Grandview, that sort of thing, UF Orange. These are making move schools, maybe a little bit in the dark horse, but it's not like some of the best schools here. It's not a win over another contender. And then we see they're up against Rutgers, who did take down University of Texas, Dallas. So this becomes a real question mark. Let's do this in a different color, actually. Our real question mark ones for who makes it through here for this first round. Miami University versus Boise. Again, neither of those are real contenders to win the tournament, so it really becomes a question of who would make it through here. And then Penn State and Redbirds, we do know how that one goes. So Redbirds is very likely to win that one, even though they're a bit weakened with their off-tank situation there, where Iron doesn't seem to be playing for them anymore. So we look at this, and again, in previous seasons, this would have meant that this would have meant that people who, get bad first-round feeds, so University of Santa Cruz, Bellevue, Lourdes, Penn State, this would have just meant that they're out and they can't do better than round of 16. This season, Blizzard has listened to our pleas and given us double elimination, which is awesome. So we're looking at that. We still are interested in these because these are the questionable bits of the bracket. I don't know exactly how these will go down into the lower brackets because it's never totally clear. We have losers over here, but losers, it just says TBD. It doesn't say loser of match A, loser of match B. So we don't actually know if teams will crisscross or not. This is something that was put together. It's effectively a projected website, and we can start putting in some predictions here. We can, we expect Harrisburg to win. We expect Northwood to win. We expect Maryville to win. We expect Redbirds to win. That's fine. We can do these things. We don't actually know that this drops them into the correct loser spots because we don't know how it's going to crisscross, which makes it a little annoying for predictions. But hey, we'll still do the best we can. We have this here. Why not? So then we go through here and we go, okay, who can make it further and who's an actual chance to win? Well, before we see who's an actual chance to win, I think we've really pulled those through. The ones who are like, hey, they have real shots to win here are mostly what we've seen. The only one we haven't pulled through who potentially has a real chance to win. Did I miss someone? Harrisburg, Northwood, Maryville. We should see, give me just a moment. Bay State. There we go. That's who I was missing. We should see Bay State there. So these are the ones who really have a chance to win the tournament as far as I'm concerned. Don't get me wrong. SCAD might surprise some people. Maybe Rutgers is good enough to surprise some people. UCI could potentially mix it up, but as soon as we get out to that sort of second group, that's sort of really it. And the real serious predictions to win this would be these guys right here. Okay, so let's go ahead and go, hey, we'll fill out the rest of this first round. Might as well here while we're here. And if you guys want to build your own brackets, I have linked in the description below a way to do that. You can make your own brackets. I'm somewhat going to do this based off of my power rankings because I do, have some faith in my power rankings there. But that's okay. So we look at this. I am going to pull UCI through. I feel pretty comfortable doing that given that UTD did have that hiccup. I know they were missing someone. They were playing at a LAN. They were crunched. I totally do get it, but UCI has looked good this season. I think it's reasonable to pull them through there. I think UTD unfortunately shot themselves in the foot a little bit by allowing themselves to get the second slot in the bottom slot when they had the opportunity to have the top slot and get easier competition. For SCAD versus Rutgers, this is tough. I am going to go with SCAD. I don't know that I expect this to be decisive if Rutgers really brought what it took to take down University of Texas, Dallas. But we are going to go with SCAD here because, hey, why not? And then Boise is going to win this out. Sorry, Redbirds. I know you guys can be good. That's not Redbirds. Well, it is, but what we're looking at there is Red Hawks, and that's Miami, Ohio. And Miami, Ohio absolutely can be very good at the video game. They can win games. They can punch high when they want to. They could. There's a world where they punch above Boise, don't get me wrong, but I don't think they're better than Boise this season. Boise looks pretty good this season. And Miami, Ohio also just seems to every once in a while roll snake eyes where they come up short. They lost to Mystery Machine, and don't get me wrong, Mystery Machine is a GM team, probably like 4-2, 4-3, and they lost that. And I've seen similar things from them in previous seasons. They, let things get close against Akron earlier this season. Sometimes they just don't fully seem to show up, and because there's the possibility of that, combined with Boise looks good this season, I think we can go ahead and move Boise through there pretty safely, which does complete our first round here. So there we go. That's what I'd say. And then who makes it through from here? I think Harrisburg does beat UCI. I mean, UCI will probably get a map, but I don't really expect that to be any real danger of Harrisburg losing. I am going to go with Bay State here. Bay State has proven that they're top, that they can do stuff, that they can really play this game with the fact that they actually got a win over Northwood earlier in the season at the very end of Swiss play there. And maybe Northwood's retooled, looking better, looking great, but Northwood doesn't have quite the roster that they did last season. Bay State does have the roster that they had last season, plus added a little bit more. And while Northwood won last season in ABC, in NACE, in NECC, Bay State found themselves getting second or third to them in most of those places, and I think now they've got just enough. They're hungry enough. They want it more. They made a little bit of roster additions, things like that. I think they've got what it takes to win that one. Okay, so then we move through here, down below. Maryville's going to take out SCAD. They're just at different levels. I mean, SCAD, maybe if SCAD's really, really hungry, but I haven't quite seen that this season. And then we're down to Red Bird, not Red Hawk. Red Birds would be ISU. Red Hawk would be Miami, Ohio versus Boise. And I would still expect Red Birds to put this together. Boise may be tough. Boise could do some work to them, but I think React will have done enough work, will have put it together, will be a good enough off-tank fill for them not fielding iron anymore, that they will be able to take down Boise, even with their roster, maybe looking a little more vulnerable. That said, they're not going to be enough for Maryville. Maryville takes that through. It's just not enough. It's not an off-tank player. I'm sorry. Not someone that they would have chosen to start on off-tank when they were doing team building. Maryville, on the other hand, does get to put through real off-tank players. That's how that one works. And this is probably the hardest one so far. Harrisburg versus Bay State. Now, I can look at this and say Harrisburg's beat Bay State previously. That happened as well, sort of in that last round of Swiss play. We got some interesting stuff. In the very last round of Swiss play, we got to see Harrisburg beats Bay State beats Northwood. Hey, isn't that interesting? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and default back to that. Again, I could definitely see Bay State being hungry, turning it on, going for it, being the hungrier team. Harrisburg already has some collegiate championship stuff under their belt, so Bay State might be hungrier, and they certainly have a roster good enough to do it, but I am going to give the nod to Harrisburg there. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and have Harrisburg work their way through to the final round here. Cool. So let's continue on through the lower bracket, because we need a lower bracket before we can actually see what happens in the grand finals. And in the grand finals, let's see, so far, do we have anyone? No, we can't see if anyone's terminated further in the tournament than we might have expected, because this is sort of the next question. Will there be anyone that finishes further ahead than we would expect just based on their path through the bracket? And as we look here, Lords versus University of Texas Dallas. I know UTD is struggling or struggled, lost that Rutgers match. I still think they're going to be able to put it back together. They're going to take down Lords there. Now, let me move my face a little bit there. I'm kind of in the way, aren't I? Boom. That's probably easier. Okay. Next, we've got Grandview Vikings versus UC Santa Cruz. And to me, that's going to be the Banana Slugs. We look at the Banana Slugs. The Banana Slugs have been here before. They're a good roster. They play solid Overwatch. I think they're going to be able to take that one out. Bellevue versus Rutgers. That's a tough one. I mean, if I look at our power rankings, I should go with Rutgers. If I look at our power rankings, this would be a thing where I go, hey, Rutgers beat University of Texas Dallas. That makes sense. Texas Dallas beat Bellevue back in Swiss play. Okay, this makes sense. The right answer is to go with Rutgers. But I hesitate. I do hesitate there. And I hesitate there because I know that Rutgers didn't quite beat a full-strength Dallas, Texas, and I know Bellevue was annoying to play against. So I'm struggling, but I'm ultimately going to give it to Rutgers. I am. I'm going to follow the power rankings, and I'm going to go with Rutgers here, but that's a tough one for me. And that would have Bellevue out of the tournament earlier than I might expect here. Grandview, maybe not shocking to me to see them go out in this effectively first round quick double elimination. You would see, hey, we had them pretty low in the rankings. Lords, it's a shame to see them drop like this, but I can see it given those matches that, make sense. They drew Harrisburg, then they get University of Texas Dallas, maybe because University of Texas Dallas put themselves in a situation where they shouldn't have been knocked down to lower bracket so early, but they did with that Rutgers loss. Lords has sort of drawn the bad card this season. season. They had 3 losses in Swiss play, and they were all to teams that were up here. So, like, this is ridiculous. They had 3 losses in regular season play. And remember, regular season play was 8 rounds, not 10 rounds back in Swiss play this time. And they drew some terrible ones. They were in the, okay, they don't have a perfect record, and someone with a perfect record goes down and plays them for round 7, for round 8, that sort of thing, just because that was how the Swiss play worked. So, shame to see them go, but I think that probably is where Lords terminates, because those would be some tough matches to win. And that leaves us for our final round. Who goes out first? And Miami, Ohio is going to take out Penn State. And I'm not shocked to see that one happen. Miami, Ohio has beat Penn State before. Definitely expect to see that. Nothing too surprising. As we get through here, if University of Texas Dallas is back and revived and at their full strength, has put it back together, gotten themselves a win there, they should now be in the right mental place to beat out Boise. And then SCAD versus UC Santa Cruz. That is a tough one. That's an interesting one. I'm going to go with SCAD, but it's not SCAD every day. It's definitely not SCAD 10 times out of 10. I definitely see days where that goes to UC Santa Cruz. It might be 3 out of 10 times that goes to UC Santa Cruz. It might be 4 out of 10 times, but we're going to go with SCAD here. Northwood, of course, is going to, maybe not of course, but I do expect Northwood to take down Rutgers without too much trouble there. And then we're going to go down here, and UCI should be able to handle Miami, Ohio. So that doesn't leave us with too much left. Northwood, of course, finishes off UCI. That becomes the end of that. And then I do expect UTD, even though I know based on the power rankings here, we should be in a place where, hey, University of Texas Dallas should lose to SCAD. That should be what happens. I'm not doing it. I'm betraying the power rankings, and I'm putting University of Texas Dallas through next, but Bay State is going to beat that. We're also going to see Northwood with the win here. We're going to see Bay State make it back through. Oh. And then I need to do one more drag here, and this really becomes the question, who is it going to be? And I think we're going to be looking at a Bay State rematch. And I think that's our bracket. I think we're going to have this Harrisburg Bay State as our match. It happens right here. We're going to have it as a rematch for the grand finals here. In terms of teams that make it, Bay State all the way, baby. I saw, Louis. I saw that was for your tweet there that you think they make it. And they could. They could win the rematch. They have that potential in them. They're hungry for it. I would not be surprised. I'm going to go with Harrisburg because Harrisburg has the win already. But this would be what I'd look at. And I think what's most interesting of what we see here, obviously, University of Texas Dallas losing to Rutgers created the real most interesting thing here. What does it do to the bracket? But as we look at this, maybe the surprises, teams that might get further than we expect. As we look through this, Penn State goes out immediately. Bellevue going out so immediately is a little surprising to me. Lords going out so immediately is just rough for them. Grandview Vikings, sure. Is anyone getting really deeper than we expect? And the answer is mostly no. There's not any huge surprises here in terms of a team getting much deeper than we'd expect. I'd say Miami, Ohio getting here is probably the furthest anyone makes a run that wasn't really, in contention. Like, you could look at Rutgers and say, hey, they were a surprise as well. I don't really get to call them a surprise after they took down Texas Dallas, even though, yes, I know it wasn't full strength Texas Dallas, but I'd say Miami University gets to run maybe a little further than we would have expected here. So they'll get a little bit better of a finish because by now we'll have had, 4 schools eliminated? So they potentially make top 12 there, which we might not have expected. We might have not expected to see Rutgers and Miami, Ohio in our top 12 there. So that gets us a little bit of a surprise. Then anything else in terms of that? No, the rest of it is pretty much what we would expect. And maybe that's not too surprising because I'm making most of my predictions, with the one exception there, as following what I have for the power rankings. But, we still get to see, hey, was anyone able to make a little bit of a deeper run than normal? So again, I'm curious what you guys think. I'm curious if you're looking forward to this. We are getting word that we're going to have a fair amount of this broadcasted by Activision Blizzard. So I expect that'll be on the Contenders YouTube channel, though I don't officially know that for sure. Keep your eyes peeled. If you want to make your own bracket, I have linked that in the description down below. So definitely check that out. And let me know in the comments down below. Am I terribly wrong, or is it like Louis said, is Bay State all the way? Is Bay State gonna win this one out? Is ISU gonna prove that I'm a doubter, that I've rated them too low, and that they're perfectly fine with the React off tank, and are they gonna win it all? Maybe get some revenge for not winning it all last season when everyone thought they would with their 4 owl-bound players? Or are we gonna see, hey, Miami, Ohio, turn it on and maybe go a little bit further? Or maybe Rutgers is absolutely the real deal and they're going to slaughter Northwood. They're going to go, hey, we beat University of Texas, Dallas. We totally are going to double down on our scrimming. We're going to be great. We're going to just go, 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 go. And prove themselves to be a powerhouse from here on forward. I'm really curious to see how this one goes, but definitely let me know what you think is going to happen in the comments down below. If you're enjoying the collegiate content, please do drop a like, consider subscribing if you haven't already done so, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks!